in Parliament because the Lands and Natural Resources Minister Emmanuel Amakufibua has laid a new legislative instrument in Parliament to effectively repeal L.I. 2462, which allowed mining in forest reserves. The government has made a strong commitment to revoking L.I. 2462 due to significant public outcry and the desire to strengthen environmental protection against illegal mining. Many of you know it as Galamsey. The new legislation is expected to include a specific clause and a schedule listing all protected forest reserves where mining is prohibited. Let's listen to what the minister said a few minutes ago, just when he laid it in Parliament, and then we'll speak to our correspondent who's been following this for us from the House.
Speaker, you recall L.I. 2462, which was enacted November 2022 to ensure that environmental management principles are legally enforced in mining operations in forest reserves. Public outcry led to an amendment of that LI by deleting Regulation 3.2 to effectively limiting the President's power. The new LI 2504 was entered into force June 2nd, 2025. However, in the light of current circumstances, it has become expedient to revoke LI 2501, and going forward, exploration and mining operations in forest reserve by legalized large-scale mining will be undertaken using guidelines reviewed in 2022 until a new LI is considered. I thank you.
So that is Emmanuel Amakufibua, the minister in charge of Ghana's lands and natural resources. Let's speak to Christian Yali, our correspondent in Parliament. He's joined us now. Christian, thank you for your time. So what exactly does laying this bill in Parliament mean?
Martin, what laying this bill technically means is that after 21 certain days, when it matures and the House approves of it, the President technically would lose all his power to grant or to issue mining permits in forest reserves. Now, that is contained in Regulation 3.2 of LI 2462. Earlier this year, the Minister for Environment, Science and Technology laid a new instrument, what you would call an amendment, to amend the first law, which is the LI 2462, to, restrict or take that power from the President so that the President is unable to grant, mining permits or grant any companies permits to mine in forest reserves or any other biodiversity area. Now, that received some backlash from the public because then the NDC, prior to the election, had made that promise that once they come into office, they are going to completely strip off that whole law, which is LI 2462. So many had raised the point that bringing an amendment to more or less seek to restrict the power of the President, what's a no. It's either you take it or you do nothing about it. What you say, all or nothing. Now today, what the minister has done is that he has laid this new instrument, and I want to give you the actual name of the new instrument. The new instrument, the full name of it is Environmental Protection Mining in Forest Reserve Revocation Instrument. So now you have revocation instrument, which means that it is still LI 2462, which has now been amended the second time, but this time around, a revocation instrument to ensure that all of that law is over. And so once it matures, the presidency, any president at all, do not have or does not have that power of, enforcing or allowing mining to happen in any biodiversity area or in forest reserve. That is the summary of all of this action, Martin.
Right. And it's quite interesting that, earlier they tried amending it, and like you're indicating, it had its own backlash where people say, you promised to take it out. How come you are just going to more or less review what is there? So you also told us that this will take 21 days. Within that period, what is expected to be happening?
Within the 21 certain days, nothing will happen. It means that the status quo would remain until the 21 certain days. It means that from today, so the counting begins from this Friday, and then next week, the session would resume on Tuesday. So from Tuesday, that will be the second day, and it continues as 21 days would reach. Then it will take effect from there. So right from that moment, it means LI 2462 would have been revoked entirely. Right now, it is the first step to it. So within this period that the counting would begin, the status quo would remain, which means that, on a lighter note, the president could decide that I'm going to grant a mining company a lease or a permit to go to mine in any forest reserve, because the new law wouldn't have taken effect. But once the 21 certain day counting had reached, it means that LI 2462 and then even the amendment 2501, which took place earlier this year, all of them would have been dealt with, all of them would have been revoked, and now we wouldn't even have anything to talk about concerning mining in forest reserves, to even talk about a president having the power to want to even issue mining permits.
But finally and briefly, do we know who then now has that authorization to even give a mining permit, not in forest reserves, of course, because that is out, but then the regular mining in concessions? Who has that authority? Is that the minister, or is it captured in the new LI, the one that has been laid?
The new LI does not capture that, but what we know, and as to where there are laws that regulate mining in the country, and so all things being equal, it just means that those laws are what will take charge or what would be effectively used by the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. And Martin, you know that this particular LI is even coming from the Ministry of Environment, and you know that Emmanuel Amakosibua is now the acting minister after the death of the substantive minister, Dr. Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed.
Yes.
And so he even laid it in his capacity as the acting minister for environment. So these two ministries, Ministries of Environment and Lands and Natural Resources, are the ones that will take charge of all mining regulations, as well as the Land Commission and the related agencies.
Christian Yali, thank you so much for the report from Parliament. He's our correspondent and updating us on the new LI that has been laid in Parliament, asking that 2462 be absolutely taken out or terminated, taken out of Parliament, or there is a revocation of LI 2462. So what are your thoughts on it? One key individual who has also been quite, active in calling for a proper attention to mining laws in the country is Darrell Bosu. He's also the Deputy National Director for Arocha Ghana. He's joined us for a quick chat. Mr. Bosu, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Good evening to you as well, my brother. I believe you are fine.
Very well, I am. How does this come to you that, after a lot of public pressure, government through the Ministry of Environment has decided to now lay one that will revoke completely LI 2462?
Yes, thank you very much for that. I think today is a very good day, and should put a lot of smart of us who have been looking forward to the government or the state taking steps to protect and give some level of security to our forest reserves. As you know, the passage of LI 2462 back in 2022 was one of the most retrogressive steps in looking at the way we have been managing our forest reserves over the past 2 decades. So eventually, the government eventually taking steps to now revoke such a retrogressive LI legal instrument. It for us a good step, very progressive, and I want to really commend the government for really keeping to their word, doing what they said they want to do. But I need to really make this cautious statement that, look, the LI will be revoked, but still government will need to ensure that the necessary compliance and enforcement regimes are in place to guarantee absolute security for our forest reserves. So this is a very good step, and we are really excited that it's coming in. Not today, and we are very happy to commend the government for taking this bold step.
Right, and on the back of that, the question would still remain that if, for instance, there is the certainty that prospecting has been done, there is a huge deposit of mineral resources in some forest area, would you agree, or would you suggest, for instance, or consider that maybe there should be a legal way of mining it although this is still in the forest reserve. How do we go about it when such a discovery is made?
So, my brother, I think what we also need to understand that the law that establishes forest reserve was very explicit in indicating which activities are compatible and which are not. And if we are mindful of the purposes for which the forest reserve was set up, it's also for the benefit of the state, for the benefit of the public, and also for the benefit of citizens. So in that respect, the state then needs to go through the appropriate channels, as it is, in this case, deforested or what we call declassifying the forest reserve before any such activity can happen. And so I believe that the state will now be more mindful when it comes to exploring such opportunities when it can. And I think that this should rather set in motion a long-term process as a country for all of us to really put in place a strategy for making sure that we protect our forests. They are also there for a particular purpose. The sources of our water, also directing well-being and welfare, especially emissions reductions and major amelioration benefits. We really also need to take steps, because if you look at the cost involved in sustaining the economy as a result of clean air and also making sure that the environment is conducive, it will equal to some of the benefits that we are getting from mining some of these areas. So I believe that as a country, we need to do a natural capital valuation, know the true value of our natural resources and forest reserves before we even think about going ahead to do some of these things. And I expect the government to make sure that they do the right thing, the law, going on into the future.
Right. And my final question would be that it looks as though the attention largely has been on forest reserves. Very little, or there is the concentration of what's happening in our forest reserves. But water is life, and is it your assumption, or should it be our assumption, that because there's a specific order protecting our forest reserves, it by extension is going to cover the water, our rivers as well, because that's where we can see clear devastation when it comes to the water bodies?
I agree with you. So I agree with you, and it's not that nobody cares about our water bodies. As you know, we have the buffer zone policy, which sets boundaries for how far you can get to or operate within certain rivers and streams in this country. It's a policy, so we have not seen a very effective implementation of that. The core has also been that government should look at effecting, making sure these laws are much more stringent, really converting some of these policy documents into law, so that we ensure absolute compliance and enforcement. And that is where I think that we need to be paying attention to. So it's not that nobody has been talking about it. We've been talking about these issues as well. But the question is the government listening? And I believe that with this out of the way, the Water Resource Commission, together with other stakeholders, and I know already the Water Resource Commission has taken the lead in moving for the buffer zone policy to be translated into a law. So we are looking forward to that as well. And I believe that this government will show leadership and make sure our water bodies also receive similar protection going on to the future.
Mr. Bosu, thank you so much. And my takeaway from your submission is enforcement. Thank you for speaking to us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you as well. Thank you.
Right. Dare Bosu is Deputy National Director at Arocha Ghana, and clearly is in support of the new directive or the new act by government where a new L.I. has been laid in Parliament for the revocation of 2462, which prior to its laying reversed what was a ban on mining in forest reserves. So L.I. 2462 actually now permitted people to go ahead and mine in forest reserves. But what action, the action that has been taken today by the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, acting as Minister in charge of Environment, clearly will now ban the mining in forest reserves. So in the coming days, 21 days is just a few days away. We'll see what kind of debate this will generate in Parliament, and clearly you are hoping that it will be a bipartisan understanding that our forest reserves need to remain as forest reserves. And water bodies also in the coming days will see what action will be taken in that regard. This is still 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. I am Martin Asiedu-Dartey.